All right, here for the weekend pod with Daniel. How's it going?
Yes, I am well. How are you?
Doing all right. Yeah, surviving. It's sunny here, which is lovely because that won't last for very much longer. Got to get your vitamin D in. Did United have some
You're
vitamin
looking
D yesterday?
You're looking pretty bronzed.
Hmm.
Did United have some vitamin D?
They might have had their halftime oranges. Something worked.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love that what he said at halftime. Actually, like, why weren't you angry? Why did it take a fuck up with the medical staff to get your team playing properly? That's not how it's meant to work.
No,
and
exactly.
Are we saying that without it, then we would? And I know that they blamed the goal being scored on the lift not being there. Don't think it's an A plus B equals C. It's impossible.
No.
But they did play quite well in the second half. I was quite happy with what I saw.
Yes, I mean they were very, very, very different halves, weren't they? And look, it's got nothing to do with motivation. If is he saying they lacked motivation in the first half? Why do they need an external stimulus to be motivated? It's really odd that they were angry. Great. But it wasn't the anger that changed how they played. It was
terrifying. Imagine Christian Eriksen being angry. Terrifying.
Yeah. Well, he can't get his blood pressure up too high, can he? Surely. So he said they were angry and they felt an injustice, which is obviously ridiculous because it's the medical staff that had the problem, not stapling his head together, Delict's head. But it was just a small tactical tweak where they pushed Bruno higher and actually committed to a press in the second half, rather than being passive and letting Brentford have the ball in the first, which is like just madness. Just think about it. He went into that game against Brentford, who are committedly rubbish. I mean, maybe we are too, but and then he was like, "Yeah, lads, you can have the ball, and we'll try and hit you on break," which is what the first half was about. And like against almost anyone at Old Trafford, the crowd's not going to like that.
We keep saying this, but the change in tactics from game to game is just absolutely absurd. Because that's not how you build a football team. You build a football team by instilling repeatable patterns. And if the defensive line's constantly moving, then that just won't be possible. And if the way that you play is so different, then how are you going to hone the automatisms and the muscle memory that enables you to do things quickly under pressure? You're not. And I don't know what to say anymore. It's just, I don't understand. I'd just love to hear his rationale about why this is happening and how it could possibly work.
He doesn't ever go into, I mean, I don't know whether you're enough of a masochist to watch any of his pressers on MUTV, but he never goes into the details. Even when he's asked, he kind of gives it this broad brush. So I'm assuming, like, as a qualified coach who's been in work for a decade or more, he knows all of this stuff, and like he's committed to whatever model they're trying to build here, and it feels like the wrong one. So I think he's not avoiding the question because he doesn't know the answer. He just doesn't want to say it. So we never get any color around his thinking.
Yeah.
But it is madness, like two different approaches in one game.
So I was asked to write something about United's data this week,
right?
Based on the data. And so one of the things I asked for was I wanted something that would show the change in that. So what I got measurement, like starting distance, where the distance from the goal that the passing sequences start. Against Fulham, it was 43.7 meters. Against Brighton, it was 34.2 meters. That's such a massive difference. Mm-hmm. Against Tottenham, it's 38.7. Against Villa, it's 49. That's not sustainable. Although,
so they're going long and direct in some games and trying to build out from the back in others.
Yeah, and another stat that I found that isn't connected to this, but really is probably the most telling one. Up to the League Cup final under Ten Hag, played 40, won 29, drawn 5, lost 6. So that's a 72.5% win ratio. Since that League Cup final, 85 games, 40 wins, 17 draws, 28 defeats. So that's 47.1% win ratio.
Right.
That is fucking abominable.
Is that the worst? What was Moyes' win ratio? I feel like it was better than 47%.
So the points per game on all of these managers is Moyes was 1.68 points per game, 50% win ratio. Ten Hag is 1.72 per game, 52% win ratio. So he's the worst apart from Moyes and Rangnick, I think.
Right. Yeah, and it's the building towards something that's the biggest problem, right? Like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I know we've won this game, and that second half was actually pretty good, but there's just no guarantee they'll pull that performance out against Fenerbahce on Thursday or against whoever we're playing next weekend. I forget. And we don't know from game to game, and everyone's trying to guess it, and like people are going into the details of the game model and go, okay, what are we gonna pull out this week? And we are still, and I know this is an old broken record now, but we are still like looking at this we are still the only team in, I'd say, the top half of the table that doesn't have a fairly distinct identity to them, and that's by choice. So, and it feels like at this point we will beat the crappy teams, narrowly beat the really average teams like Brentford, average team, and lose to the good teams, and it'll be in cup competitions where we may pull something out for reasons. He said yesterday, and this was actually the most infuriating thing, last season was a successful season, so he judges it by, they got the FA Cup, so it's successful based on one game, I guess. And,
I guess you've got to get to the final, and we did beat Liverpool to do it.
We did beat Liverpool, yeah. But if we finished eighth every season, but won a trophy, would that be successful?
No. Like, it's not successful by the standards that United have to hit. But obviously he would say that because he's trying to keep his job. Does he actually think it?
I don't know. But it seems,
It is quite hard to get a read on what he says, because given how dreadful the performances have been, because it feels like he's not really empowered to say how bad the performances are exactly, because that will make him look bad. And yet he never takes responsibility for those performances himself.
Never. Yeah.
There's never I got the tactics wrong here. Seems never, or I made a bad change or anything like that. It does always seem to be blaming the players. But I guess one of the things I thought about yesterday's game is that, and I don't always think this, but there's a player in Rasmus Højlund, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, there's a player, when you get the ball in front of him, he spent all of the first half fighting with Ethan Pinnock, and it was just like one-sided, because Ethan Pinnock is always going to win that physical battle with Rasmus Højlund, and I feel like that's by choice. And then suddenly they started playing the ball in front of him, and he's dangerous, and he scores goals. And there's definitely a player, but use him in the right way, for fuck's sake. Don't use him just to occupy a defender. I
actually thought that his hold-up play was better yesterday than it has been quite a lot of the time.
I think he's improving technically, so I just don't know whether that's the optimal use of him. And I think a lot of the problems I have, and many other people have, with Ten Hag's game model is that it's not optimal for the skill sets of our best players, right? Bruno's way too deep. Rasmus Højlund's fighting with central defenders. Marcus Rashford's deep and wide. I mean, you can see that just from his starting position, right? These are not the places or the roles that you want our best players to have in order to succeed.
No, I guess what I would say on Højlund, though, is that if he's going to be a good player, then the hold-up player is going to have to he's just going to have to be good at it, because we're going to play against those teams that sit deep, and if he wants to be in the team for those and be useful, then it is not going to be enough to be strong in behind. He's going to have to he's going to have to be good at doing lots of other things too, and so that part of his game needs to improve. And I thought he did well in that regard yesterday, actually.
Yeah, I mean, our best players were Marcus Rashford, who I thought felt much more like Marcus Rashford yesterday, played left and right. Garnacho, who's constantly a threat. If only he could actually finish, I think this would be transformative. Clearly can finish, because it was a great finish for the goal, but his ratio is below Darwin Núñez, right? So it's sub 20%. Bruno, who, especially in that second half, played much, much higher. He's going to create goals. So as soon as he's in those positions, he creates more shot-creating actions than anyone else in the Premier League. He was just consistent with that over the years. And who else? The defenders were all pretty good, weren't they? De Ligt, after he did his Terry Butcher, was pretty solid for him. Didn't make any obvious mistakes, I don't think.
I think we need to be careful, with the new players, because it's taken better players than De Ligt time to adjust to the Premier League. So, yeah, I'm not going to change my opinion that he's the wrong type of player, and he's going to need to, the intangibles like the leadership and the mentality. Those things are going to have to make a difference because they're going to have to cover up for the things that he doesn't do, or can't do, or doesn't do or isn't as good at. But Brentford feels like the kind of game where you would expect him to be good because they're quite a physical, rigid threat. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I thought he did a good job yesterday, relatively speaking. But it is what Brentford at home is different to even Tottenham at home, where he did not do such a good job. So I mean, we'll see. And I feel the same with Ugarte. Like, there's something I find a bit beige about him, a bit more like Morgan Schneiderlin, where you kind of like, there's like that thing that differentiates you that you want United players to have. I don't know if Ugarte's got it, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here saying that he's shit now. Mm-hmm. Having not seen enough of him, but the manager's reticence to use him
is a bit odd, isn't it?
Well, I guess he wasn't a Ten Hag signing, but once Ten Hag was signed off on it, you would think he would have to pick him. And also, the board gave you £50 million to buy him, presumably after you said okay. To then not play him seems to be like inciting the people that are going to fire you at some point.
He complained about having to sell Scott McTominay as well. And he was like, we had to for PSR reasons. All these managers are doing the same thing. And I'm like, hang on a minute, you make choices in the market. Like, you chose to sign Anthony. As a consequence, you're having to sell Scott McTominay. You know, it's like, fuck around, find out, basically. Anyway. Yes, we'll see what happens with Ugarte. He's Ten Hag digging in. He doesn't feel like N'Golo Kante to me. He doesn't feel like.
No, I would agree with that.
Who's that lightweight fucker that Arsenal bought? Who all the Arsenal fans doing the Arsenal fan thing?
Marino.
Which is, Vieira.
Oh, yeah.
Is he called Vieira?
Fabio Vieira.
Yeah. Who they're like, he's the best player who's ever been born, and 3 months later they're like, this guy's a pile of shit. And yeah, funnily enough, he's a pile of shit and been shipped off somewhere. Ugarte feels a bit like that, a bit lightweight, not sure. The old standout.
I don't think in the fullness of time we'll see him as lightweight. The question for me is more one of quality and whether he's the right kind of player. But I guess in the end, like, we didn't really want to buy him, did we? We tried to get him on loan because we didn't want to spend the money, and it feels like they'll have enough money to spend whatever it will take. They know they're going to have to go in that position again next summer.
Yeah. All right, so should we talk about some of the details?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm trying to remember the goal. Ethan Pinnock's goal. I mean, I don't know. Would De Ligt have stopped that? I mean, he's just great from set pieces, Pinnock. So.
Maybe.
Yeah, he's a really good weapon. They didn't score from in the first minute from the kickoff. Was given a lot of hype before the game. They've got a couple of early goals this season. So, although the one they scored against, was it Spurs? Like a couple of minutes in, there were like 6 phases of play before they actually scored. I was just like, that's just a goal. Anything special about that. And then I'm trying to think. The equaliser was Rashford to Garnacho, right? Brilliant ball in, curled behind there.
We've seen a few balls like that from Rashford this season, and in general, he is like, people talk about him not being a good passer. I don't think that's true. I mean, I guess maybe he's erratic. But when he's capable of very, very good passing and delivery and vision. Yeah. Oh, fuck off. Liverpool have just scored the second goal. Now lead Chelsea 2-0. Oh, no, offside. Never mind.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so... the first goal was excellent. And that's the kind of thing you want. Like, you want Rashford turning up on the right sometimes, going out on the left sometimes. Yeah, and because they both have ability to do things from the natural side and from the inverted side, and United have we are very predictable and under Ten Hag, because we have been under every post-Bergie manager, and for what we have now at least is we have the ability to attack down both flanks, which has not been the case for quite some time.
Yeah, the goal threat I think Ahmad has done pretty well this season, but I never quite understood the kind of mega online clamour that somehow he should definitely always be in the side. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, he's a nice player with the ball at his feet. The goal threat from Garnacho and Rashford is really high, right? If you get them into the right positions. The problem has been, especially for Marcus Rashford, and you can see this in the data. I don't know whether you looked at this, but his average touch position has got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper through the 3 years of, or 2.5 years of Ten Hag. And it's just not where he needs to be. He needs to be as high up the pitch as possible. So when he gets the ball, he's in those dangerous positions that he can either make those kind of creative passes or run at players, which is what we want. Lots of players committing.
So Rashford, I did actually look at the heat maps, but I looked at the heat maps to show that he was starting wider, and he was too wide than the season he scored lots of goals. And that is quite, but more because you can see how the starting position can be deeper because you might be under more pressure, like it can relate to game state.
Right.
But why are you on the fucking touchline?
Yeah, it's mad. It's absolutely mad. So, I mean, and clearly a tactical choice. And then the second goal, the winning goal, a lovely ball around the corner from Bruno. Like, just get him in those positions. He creates something mad, right? It's out of nothing. It's just into his feet, and suddenly the ball's around the corner. I don't know, Rude-esque finish there, like completely calm.
It was one of those occasions that you get sometimes where probably a slightly heavy touch was quite helpful because it forced the keeper to commit. And once the keeper goes down like that, if you could get it over him, it's definitely a goal.
Yeah.
And it was an excellent finish, and it was a goal that he needed. And he's got loads of ability. Like I couldn't get them to get me a stat that showed how poorly he'd been served. Because if you think about it, he scored 15 goals he scored last season, which is not bad given young player, new league, crap team, injuries. But I can't remember all the goals, but it feels like he had to create almost all of them for himself.
It's the number of shots he takes and number of touches. They're quite low. I mean, you just want him to be taking 4 shots a game and have 20, 25 touches, something like that. So, and like in the right kind of areas.
And that goal actually was sort of one of the types of goals I wanted to see him score. And I hope we see him score when we bought him. Because in theory, you've got one of the best creators in the world behind you. And I thought they'd be darting balls down the sides of the defender, the sides of the centre backs for him, and that has not really happened.
It's barely happened. I mean, it partly to do with how deep Bruno is, and I guess partly to do with Højlund trying to work out his own body. I kind of feel like if Xerxes and Højlund could fucking have a baby, then that'd be the right centre forward, you know.
Yeah.
So, and it's unfortunately there's kind of weaknesses in both. I don't know whose ceiling is higher, really. I can't see a pathway in which Xerxes starts scoring goals. He just doesn't seem like that kind of player at all. Just doesn't get in those positions. Although his first one was a tap-in, so maybe he can. So
it doesn't feel like that should be impossible, though, for him to be able to do that. I mean, his confidence feels that it's evaporated very quickly.
Mm. Yeah, there's already a lot of criticism of him, which I think is unfair, right? He's completely different style of play, very, very distinctly. Like the Premier League has become very transitional, and Italy has become very much not that. I mean, you can see that. I can't remember. Sorry, I forget who put some of that data out, looking at the style of play change. Oh, maybe it was Cox, Zona Marking. Put it out looking at the changes in style of play of the different leagues. But so he's going to adapt to a very different league and a different team. And I don't know whether we're a better team than Bologna. You'd hope so.
Better than Bologna.
Yeah, don't know. So does this saves Ten Hag for another month or so, doesn't it? Before the pressure I guess the pressure could amp up quite quickly with defeats against Fenerbahce and West Ham in the next week.
Which you could easily see happening.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Although West Ham were apparently absolutely dreadful yesterday, so yeah, maybe there's that.
Yeah, I mean, we do need it. I don't know what results will keep you in the job till after the break, but I feel like they probably aren't in a rush to fire him because they don't think they can replace him adequately at this point. And they'll fire him if they have to, but otherwise they'll let it go till the end of the season.
I mean, I guess if there's no one they can replace him with, then it would just be rude, and we don't know much about him as a coach, really. He's had the one season. Is that better or worse than Ten Hag? And what's the opportunity cost? And we could be worse.
Right, but we know that if we just done the first 7 games of the season, it's not possible to. If you or I were manager, United would not have fewer points having scored fewer goals. It's not possible to have this team with 5 points. With what was it?
Let's just organise it yourself. Yeah,
yeah, and what was it? 5 goals in 7 games. It's not really possible for it to be worse than that.
We were the lowest goal scorers in the Premier League before yesterday. Now we have 7, so we're not.
And look who the goals came against as well. 3 of them against Southampton, a deflection against Brighton. I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's not great. Early on, we were saying, well, we were creating chances, which was true in the first couple of games, but not really true of the games against Spurs or Villa.
Yeah, it's halftime. We had, I can't remember, it was like a dozen shots at halftime yesterday, and it was 0.28 XG. So it was like all these pot shots from range that just like, yeah, they have to be brilliant and you score. But that is not a pattern that's going to take you anywhere near the top of the table. So we are still only 5 points. We're only 6 points off Arsenal, but we're about 6 points off the relegation zone as well. So could go a couple.
Right, but I mean, we are in a decent position given how shit we've been. We are still in a reasonable position, and if we suddenly start playing as we should, like regularly playing to closer to what the actual ability of the team is, then the top 4 is not out of the question.
Yeah. So Fenerbahce on Thursday night, like. I'm assuming you're not watching a lot of Turkish football. I am not. I see the highlights when Osimhen scores some ridiculous goal because he's way too good for that league. But Fenerbahce's got 99 points last season, so I imagine they're a decent side and still didn't win the league, which is quite remarkable. I imagine they're decent, and every time we've played them in the past, there's been a fantastic atmosphere. I know all of that is a cliche of Turkish football, isn't it? But I went to university. I stayed in the same house as a Fenerbahce fan for a couple of years. It was absolutely mad nut for Fenerbahce. So I was like, oh, yeah, well, if I'm having a second team in Turkey, it'll be this lot. Until they were the first team that beat us at Old Trafford in Europe.
Yeah, Bolic. Yeah. Freddie Bolic, was that his name?
I was at that game. It was fucking cold. You know how it is in Old Trafford, and your feet freeze, and that was absolutely miserable. That one, so.
I guess there'll be a lot of chatter about Mourinho as well.
Yeah, of course. Mourinho, Fred, and what's his name? Midfielder guys there who we had last season. Why am I forgetting? Amrabat. Amrabat's there as well online, isn't he? So,
yeah, and so we do probably need to play more or less a full strength team to try and get a result there. I mean, I'd like to see Ugarte stay, Pekka start, because we just need to get him in the team and see what he can do.
He's going to have to. I mean, didn't Casemiro hobble off with an injury? So, don't know if they've said that he was feeling the back of his leg and asked to be subbed. So he's going to have to play.
Yeah, and I mean, so you have Ugarte, Eriksen, and Bruno. That's the midfield, I guess.
Yeah, he's gonna. I just thought I do wonder with Eriksen just how many games he can play. He's playing a lot of games, but it looks like Kobe's out for weeks, not months.
A month, I think they said.
A month. He lies all the time, Ten Hag. He'll just be like, yeah, a couple of weeks, and then he'll come out from the December. I mean, he said a couple of weeks for Luke Shaw, at least for 3 times since February. So it's anyway. Yeah, I mean, I guess Kobe's getting the rest that he really needed. You can see it that way, or it was the inevitable of playing so many games for a teenager.
Yeah, I mean, but I maybe after the next international break, it would feel like we'd have him back, and Euro will be available as well. And I mean, Shaw's meant to be available, and then suddenly the team's taking on a little bit of a better shape, I think, because one of the things it lacks pace back.
Sure.
And if you put Shaw and Yoro in there, then that is going to hopefully solve some of our problems. Because it will mean we can then defend higher, squeeze the play more, and build the play better because we're starting from a higher point.
Yeah. I mean, that if you're going to play, if you want to play that kind of style of football, you need some pace in your fullbacks. I mean, look, Tottenham. I would not say Porro is a particularly good player, but he's got pace and kind of some attacking nous, and it does make a difference to their style of play. So for sure, Mazraoui was back yesterday. I was like, oh, fucking hell, heart surgery or whatever, and you're back. Please be all right. Apparently very minor. So that's good. I mean, in one sense, the injury list looks quite long. I mean, Yoro, Mount, Shaw, Masia, Mount. I know, fucking hell.
So far, one of the worst signings.
Just unbelievable. Just such bad value for money. And he's got another muscle injury. Like, how do you pick a muscle injury when you're out with a head injury? It's just like, what the fuck? He got that head injury and had to have stitches, then posted on Instagram the picture of him getting a haircut, which, or whatever it was, but maybe he was getting stitches. I don't know, but everyone seems to like take against that. I really think the players should just keep off the socials. It just doesn't do any good for them. What are they trying to achieve?
Yeah, no, if he hadn't have tweeted then, no one would have said, well, I mean, I didn't care that he had that haircut, but if he hadn't have tweeted, no one would have said, why didn't you tweet about that? He was so rude.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it may not have even been him, but.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. Pay way too much money for some intern at some marketing agency.
Building the brand of Mason Mount.
Jesus. Oh, dearie me. Yeah, anyway, he's out. Anyone else? Big Harry fit?
No, Harris is injured, no?
Harris is injured, yeah. So I guess he won't play. So Johnny Evans continues to...
He's been so good.
It's unbelievable. How is it... Louis van Gaal, why did you sell him again? Remind me. So
because he bought Marcus Roffler.
Talking of socials, no one will ever tweet anything better than his burnt toast.
There's his toast.
So, in bed with the missus, absolutely annihilated piece of toast.
Some burnt toast, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know how to call this one. I mean, the team basically picks itself because there aren't too many options, right? Especially in central midfield. I mean, at defence, it's, I guess the question is, does Martinez play at left back again, or is Mazraoui back in the team?
I think it will be that. I think it will be Mazraoui and Martinez will move back to centre back, I imagine.
Yeah. Like that Mason was saying, De Ligt, I assume is like, he didn't come off with a concussion, so I assume he's all right. I mean, he took a full-on knee to the head. Like, by the way, we didn't talk at all about how he got the injury. I mean, it looks like the still is amazing. It looks like the player's like holding him and like giving him shanking. So I guess it's that midfield picks itself, and then the forward line is. I mean, can you drop Højlund after he scored?
I think he has done before, but it seems unlikely. It'll be hard because again, we need to win, and he'll want Højlund's pace in behind. I think. Yeah.
I mean, if we don't win, and imagine say we come away with a draw, 3 from 9, 5 more games to go. I mean, the next 5 look much easier, don't they?
I don't think we will fail to qualify.
Yeah, just absolutely. I mean, it would be a very United post-Fergie thing to do, fail to qualify from 24 teams that will qualify.
I mean, it's so hard to be interested when we have to look things up to know what's going on.
Yeah. We'll get used to it eventually, this format, I guess, but it is kind of ridiculous. I don't see where the claimed jeopardy is coming from, except in that last game or two. Right. Talking of ridiculous formats, the Club World Cup, Gianni Infantino is still trying to drum up some interest. Players don't want it. Not sure the clubs want it. Broadcasters definitely don't want it, and there's no underwriter. I assume that they'll end up pushing this to Saudi Arabia at some point, because that'll be the third party will come in and save it for Gianni. But they fixed the qualification process to make sure that Lionel Messi is there.
So I wrote years and years ago, actually, that I see a piece saying that there should be a Club World Cup. I guess because I fancied the idea of following United to one.
Yeah.
But
I can see the
in theory, it makes
surface level of
it makes sense. It's just the problem is, as you say, first of all, artificially massaging the contestants. Also, what happens with the money? Because if you've got this already the richest clubs in the world making an absurd amount of money for this, then it's just going to exacerbate the differences.
Yeah.
And how do you make will clubs take it seriously?
Yeah. Well, they'll take it seriously if there's money, basically. And it's not clear that there is yet, because he doesn't seem to have been able to drum up broadcaster interest for it. I mean, maybe that changes at the last minute, and it's a negotiation ploy on both sides. It's just the market is very saturated with football. There's not a lack of football, right?
And that's the other thing is, that the players need to rest.
Players don't want it. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, executive of Bayern Munich, this week said it's all on the players' fault. They keep asking for more money. That's the conversation we're not having. I mean, I guess it's circular, right? If you, what's his name? Amstrad founder, Spurs dude, Alan Sugar said years ago, it's like prune juice money in football. It just goes straight out the other end, meaning whatever you put into football just goes straight into players' wages, which is true, right? So if you look over the broadcasting revenue over the lifetime of the Premier League's gone up something like 3,000%, and wages have gone up more than 3,000%. So just goes straight out to players. So it's an arms race to make more money to pay the best players, to make more money to pay the best players. So, and unfortunately, someone at some point has got to go, right, that's enough. We're just going to have to be happy with what we've got here. And that's what financial controls like FFP or PSR or in the Super League, there are actually very strict financial controls, which had a hard cap on salaries and stuff like that, and like all attempts, I think, to try and control this sort of arms race.
Yeah, the problem with I'd like there to be a salary cap in theory. The problem is football still be making the same amount of money. So then what happens to it? And it's going to
go to the owners,
and that is much worse than it going to the players.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I don't think anyone, people complain about players' wages when they're not playing well.
The people who are the best in the world at almost everything get paid a shitload of money. And when you're talking about an industry that obsesses millions of people, billions, if not billions, and is one of the biggest arms of one of the biggest entertainment industries in the world, then why should people who are the best at it not be paid loads of money? I guess the problem is more the people that aren't the best are still owning a shitload of money. Players in the Championship even owning a shitload of money.
Well, they are now. I mean, I guess if you convert it to a lifetime, it doesn't look super awesome, but they just, that's football. You have to have a second career after you're done. Yes, I don't know whether anyone's gone, well, Tom Cruise made 25 million in Mission Impossible 7, and his performance was a bit ropey. Let's have our money back, please. So it doesn't work like that in other walks of life. I guess we feel, because they feel like kind of social entities, don't they?
Yeah, the clubs and the
we
players,
feel like we own them, even if we don't. Yeah,
right. And also, you can't help but notice that a lot of these players are working class. A lot of them are of colour. And do people have a problem with those people succeeding?
Goldbridge was going on about Rashford again yesterday, by the way. So just doesn't end.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine, United fan, and we had a different opinion of Ronaldo, right? Because I was like, basically, I don't want a rapist in the team. It's my club. It's this is horrendous. This is happening. He was like, it's an entertainment product. Do you care if an actor in a film has done raping? I'm like, Paraphrasing. So I was like, yes, if I knew that was happening, yes, I would have a problem with it. But it's like the more the argument, like it's a social construct, right? Or a social thing. We feel very close to this thing. We feel like
they represent us.
Ownership stake. They represent us. Yeah, yeah, and that is the difference. So yes, that's why we are bothered when they earn loads of money and don't seem to perform. Yeah. The hate against some certain players driven by, but apparently treated to hospitality on the club yesterday was Brent.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. So said social media. So I guess you can take that with a pinch of salt. But yeah, someone credible. I was given a name by two people of who has been doing the courting at the club, and I would say, if I was the comms department there, I'd be getting a P45 slip out quite fast. But yeah, they haven't done that yet. So,
yeah. I mean, it's just, I find it just so bizarre that these people are part of the discourse around United. And
yeah. I mean, we're part of the discourse. We just don't have the same platform, Dan.
Right, but that's what I mean. No, right. But that's what I mean. Like, no one knows who we are.
Yeah.
Apart from the people who listen, whereas like millions for people know who he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was chatting to a friend's dad who is, I think he's 70-ish, for about 70. And he was asking me and he's a Liverpool fan, Scouse, a Liverpool fan. And he was asking me if I'd seen him on TikTok. And like that, I could not believe what I was hearing. Like, someone who doesn't support United and is an OAP is watching this guy's videos.
Yeah, well, it seeps into the national discourse because it's an entertainment. Yeah, well, if it all goes wrong for him, he'll be shilling crypto and finding Jesus and going on the grift circuit, I imagine. So, yeah, it's unbelievable. Talking of which, I know it's just like desperate need for engagement or whatever. But Joey Barton, like, it's almost like every week he tweets something about how the gays, quote, the gays have taken over football, or yeah, every time there's like a foul or a red card he doesn't like. Why does this guy still have a fucking platform? Is he actually employed by anyone at the moment, Barton? Are people paying him money, or is he just him going on a grift?
I guess he's just trying to cause enough ruction so that he then becomes able to be a paid guest and stuff, or get a paid podcast, or who knows what like that.
Didn't he launch a podcast at some point?
Presumably.
God, any twat has a podcast these days. Fucking hell.
I know, they're fucking idiots.
Used to be exclusive, Dan. Like, there are only a few of us now. Now there's lots of twats. Theory, me. Yeah, I guess that's it, right? You have a big enough audience, you can bring your audience to whatever media property will have you. That is the game, isn't it?
Yeah, and people like outrage. So also something outrageous, then obviously other people will retweet it, either in agreement or to take the piss out of it. But it almost doesn't matter, because the more people hate him, the more the people that like him will like him. And it's just, yeah, I mean, I always thought it was quite weird as well when he did that book that he was suddenly redeemed, and you're kind of thinking, well, actually, not really. He's not someone who I ever seemed to be ever found interesting. He just seemed like an arsehole who did shitty things to people.
I didn't think he had anything to say whatsoever at any point. I mean, I guess he went on that big thing. I mean, he got some people to agree with him when he went on that thing about Ennio Loco, right? Because he didn't like women on TV, I assume, but particularly her, and there is a significant percentage of the population who are happy with misogyny like that and kind of went along with him. He's finding another group now tweeting about the gays or homosexuals, quote, on the daily. So I guess he's probably transphobic, and he'll move to that in a bit. And then he can start shilling crypto. That's the pathway, isn't it?
One of the football conversations I'd most like to have heard, though, will be that game when is it? I can't actually remember where it was. I think it's when he 2004, I think it is. Spurs are playing. He's playing for City against Tottenham in the cup, and it's 3-0 to Spurs at half time, and he gets himself sent off, arguing with the rest on the way off. But Keegan's already gone to the dressing room, so Keegan doesn't know. So he has to turn up in the dressing room with the team 3-0 down and say, "Actually, it's worse than you think it is. I've got sent off for being feisty." City actually win the game. They win 4-3. But as a footballing conversation, I'd absolutely love to have heard.
There's as part of the new broadcast deal, there's talk about doing extra interviews with players and managers, so like a halftime interview. Which
do you remember we used to get them in Europe?
Yeah, I don't like it. They never say anything interesting. I do like in some T20s they mic up one of the players and they'll interview. I don't know whether you've ever seen this. It's great. They'll interview a player, but many cricketers are quite erudite about the game, right? And so they'll talk in detail. And obviously you get time when you're down at third man or whatever and doing nothing for hours on end. And so that's quite interesting. But the idea of having more interviews with footballers seems pointless. The one thing they did say is they'd be showing more footage from inside the dressing room, which I do think, I think we'd all like to be a fly in the wall there, wouldn't we? And all like to see more of what is actually said and done to either motivate or change things around or get tactical information out there or whatever they do in those 15 minutes. So.
Yeah, I mean, American sports do this really well.
They do, yeah.
But it's a slightly different organisation. It's a closed shop. And I think in order to keep the circle of money going round, they need access for the same reason it's competitive, like the same reason you have the draft. If the same teams keep winning, then with a closed shop, it becomes less interesting. So I think yes. And I mean, I think that they talked like NFL films basically always invented the kind of sporting documentary. I don't know if you watch America's game, just they managed to turn every single season into the most epic thing you've ever seen. And it's a kind of almost like a soft power thing. So on NFL films is basically almost like a soft power thing where they're presenting a version of Americana to the world. And part of the way they do it is with that kind of privileged footage.
Yeah. I met the former head of digital at the NBA and for a meeting once, not football related. And she was like, so her job was to, as she said, 99.9% of NBA fans will never, ever get to a game. And her job was to make access to the sport as wide as possible. And so they were trying to do things with NBA.com and the Game Pass and in different countries and have access in the dressing rooms and courtside and all of that, right? So the goal was to make it as accessible as possible every single moment of the experience. And they'd even gone as far as like tagging all the historical plays with like descriptions so they could then get that social stuff out. And they were thinking of minting NFTs and all that kind of bollocks as well. But football hasn't, or Premier League hasn't quite done that yet.
They love nomenclature, America. So there's just so many different names of games as well, like the Ice Bowl. And,
right, yeah.
And that's the folkloric stuff that American football does really well. They just understand how that works. And so you could get better access in the dressing room access, but it'll still need people that know how to curate this shit to get the best stuff. Like it's very rare you see dressing room footage and think, oh, that was really fucking revealing.
Yeah.
You just think, oh, the Newcastle Fairs taking another photo, are they?
I mean, I forget what he's called now. That manager, he's like managing a League One side, and it's the most expletive-riddled like speech ever.
Ignoring one, bring it dinner.
Oh yeah, that one. That's it. Yeah. No, it's like that's like what's the reference? Yes.
Oh, it's amazing that one.
Yeah, that's good. More of that would be good.
And so it would be nice to hear like the managers give their team talks, that kind of thing. But and to hear, but just seeing them in that environment is not appealing to me unless they're full frontal.
Well, they would be after the game. A lot of nakedness in the sports dressing room. So great, good. As long as it's not John O'Shea, right? So,
well, who can say?
Who can say? All right. I think we've run out of crap to talk about. We should leave it there, Daniel.
As
before
possible.
We're boring people. Yeah, with a mental image of John O'Shea's Tadger. Jolly good. So, well, thanks a lot for listening or watching, everyone. You can find us on socials. Daniel's at Daniel Harris. I'm at NQAT Pod. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Twitter or X. Very good. Catch you next time. All the best. Bye now.
Yes.